Welcome back as we continue on talking about the second of the four components of a comprehensive classroom management system. I had made reference in the earlier podcast of three types of consequences. What are they? The first being natural consequences, things that occur without our intervention. You stand out in the cold rain, you get hypothermia. You sleep through your train stop, you're going to the wrong place. You show obnoxious behavior, others will reject you. What are some of the problems, though, with the use of natural consequences by educators? Well, first of all, the school is a contrived and planned environment, which reduces our chances for using naturally occurring consequences. And many of our kids thrive on negative attention. Others rejecting them, saying, "Ooh, go away, leave me alone, you're strange." These youngsters not knowing how to gain positive attention, take negative attention. At least I exist, people are attending to me, I'm influencing my environment. The second of the three types of consequences are logical consequences, thoughtful, reflective, self-controlled responses. In order to give a good, solid, logical consequence, we need to observe the three R's to assure that we're not simply being spontaneously punitive. First of all, the consequence should be related to the offense. The consequence should be reasonable. It should be sufficient, but not severe. The third R is being respectful. The pupil should not be degraded, should not lose face, should not face public shame. I might add a fourth R to that. It should be remedial. It should teach the youngster the appropriate behavior. Now, there are some problems with the use of logical consequences. First being, we got a lot of illogical teachers out there. But for those of us who are operating in a logical frame of mind, it's difficult sometimes to formulate logical consequences. What is logical for bullying, fighting, spitting, insulting the cafeteria lady, stealing from the teacher's purse, writing graffiti, yelling out the answer, being rude, refusing to comply, being late for class, talking, being off task, running in the hallways, lying, climbing up the slide, pulling someone off the swing, or in one of my situations that I experienced, my kids spraying this non-stick cooking oil in the corner of the hallway and laughing as others were coming by and sliding on it. What is a logical consequence? The third type of negative consequence is the systematic. Predetermined penalties. No matter what the offense, we are going to go through that list of sequentially more punitive penalties. The problems? Well, the penalties are unrelated to the behavior. Okay, I got a 5-minute timeout. What does that have to do with being connected with the behavior? How is that remedial? And teachers tend to rely very heavily on the punitive part of their behavior management system. We need to remember to focus on the positive parts. We'll get to that soon. But we want to let our list of consequences do the work while we present ourselves as being calm, confident, and even a bit regretful at having to implement the consequence. As we move through our list of sequentially more punitive consequences, we show more firmness and more resolve, but not anger. We're always reminiscing about the times when he or she made a good choice, trying to lure them into making a good choice in this particular moment, encouraging them to make a good choice to avoid further penalties, as opposed to, "Go ahead, push me, I'll take you another 10 minutes off." If the systematic application of a list of consequences isn't working, we gotta change the system. Get a better system. Don't get meaner and crankier. Get smarter. When the youngster does comply, immediately show a smile and thank the student for having made a good behavior choice and displaying the correct behavior. We don't hold a grudge. We don't say, it's about time and don't do that again. It's better late than never, and we will help this youngster improve in his or her timeliness. We also know that people are more likely to comply with authority figures they like and respect. We want to be sure that our archive of positive interactions between ourselves and the student heavily outweighs the history of negative events. It's recommended that we have at least 5 to 8 positive interactions for every negative one we have with a kid. More so if our interactions have been primarily negative up to this point. We're looking for the kid doing the right thing. We should always remember our goal, and when we get compliance, our goal, we smile. We bond with the youngster. Kids are more likely to listen to the message if they like the messenger. Another recommendation is that the steps or the penalties be small enough in difference that we will have several of them, many of them. We're then more likely to implement them quickly and consistently, helping us avoid that, I'm warning you, don't push me. How many times do I have to tell you? Do you really want me to implement this penalty? Each and every misbehavior can be addressed. But what if we only have one big punishment that we can use? Removal from recess, a phone call to the home, sending the youngster to the school disciplinarian, requiring the youngster to eat lunch in an isolated place, or perhaps some other severe penalty. In these cases, we could respond in one of two ways. In the first way, we would implement the penalty in segments. In the elementary grades, it might be that the youngster, after the warning, the official warning, loses 1 minute of recess, then 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 15 minutes, and then all of recess spent sitting on the sideline watching others have fun. At the upper grade levels, students have a certain amount of time to pass in the hallways going from one class to another. After our official warning, we might have the student wait 20 seconds after the bell rings before being dismissed into the hallway. Then 45 seconds, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. These youngsters are missing their social connections. After that 2 minutes, certainly we will have to let them go so that they can make it to the next class on time. After that, we would go with detention being assigned. And not just having the kid be there for a certain amount of time, but that youngster gets 10 minutes of detention, then 20 minutes of detention. But in order to earn those minutes and be dismissed from detention, the youngster must have been quiet and engaged in some task. Otherwise, the clock does not move. Or our second option, if we think we only have one big punishment that we can utilize, is to take away all of a privilege after a certain number of warnings have been given. So it might be the third check mark, the third warning, the third mark on the board that results in implementing that serious consequence. And then we decrease the number of warnings as the student becomes more capable of behavioral restraint. Some of you may have a point system in place. Youngsters earn points for engaging in certain behaviors, but there may be a penalty component. Here's an example from that driver theme system that we saw in an earlier podcast, where one can lose your license. There are penalties for rule infractions. If a certain number of negative points accumulate, Your daily privileges, social time, lunch with friends are denied. Here are some violations that result in points on your license. Failure to yield right of way. That means disrespect was shown toward others. Failure to observe a stop sign. That means failing to follow directions. Reckless driving means being rough with others. Or excessive speeding, use of profanity or offensive words. The third component in our four-component classroom management system is positive consequences. The major focus of our system should be placed on catching kids being good. When the class is out of control, look for the kids who are doing the right thing. Recognize those students in an attempt to instigate what's known as the ripple effect, throwing a pebble into a still pond and watching the effect move out. So we say, Mary, I like the way you're sitting up so nice and tall in your seat, and all the other kids scooch up. And we say, thank you very much. There's an example of the ripple effect. Table 3. You showed a lot of maturity and self-restraint in cleaning up after your activity. And then we see the other tables engage in that action, the ripple effect. Some teachers rely too much on the negative ripple effect. Sit up! And the kid scooches up, and so do all the other kids out of fear. But that's the lowest stage of moral development. Do it because you fear me. We want to raise these youngsters to higher levels of character development, doing it because it's the right thing to do and it brings approval. All in all, research and craft knowledge tell us that our best behavior management practice is to catch kids being good, if it's done correctly. We'll be talking more so about how to catch kids being good, how to give praise correctly to be more effective in a future podcast. But we do want to make catching kids being good a major focus, the major focus of our behavior management systems. Future podcasts will deal more in depth with how to use positivity in effective ways. For those of you in my classes, we'll be engaging in elongated discussions and a myriad of activities regarding appropriate use of positivity. Component number 4 in our 4-component behavior management system is consistency. In order for our system to be effective, we must be predictable in our responses to actions. I'll finish up our podcast by reading an article by Mary Beth Hewitt in her Choices newsletter, Volume 1. Talks about predictability. She says, in order to be most effective, consequences must be seen as a direct result of the individual's actions. If people can't see this correlation, then they're more likely to attribute the consequence to either good luck or bad luck, fate, or being at the discretion of powerful individuals. Here's an analogy. What causes speeding tickets? Speeding? Have you ever sped and not received a speeding ticket? Yes. Then speeding doesn't cause speeding tickets. If it did, then whenever we sped, a ticket would magically appear out of our dashboard. So what causes speeding tickets? Getting caught speeding. Have you ever been speeding, been stopped, and not gotten a ticket? Yes. Then getting caught speeding doesn't cause speeding tickets either. So what then causes speeding tickets? Getting caught speeding by an officer that is in a bad mood, overzealous, trying to meet the quota at the end of the month, has no compassion. Yes, it's the person who's charged with enforcing the speeding rule, and does so, that causes speeding tickets. So speeding tickets are their fault, not mine. What causes either a positive or negative phone call home to my parents? What causes me to either earn or lose recess? My behavior? No, because there are times when I behave inappropriately and nothing happens. There are even times when I behave inappropriately and the teacher sees me and nothing happens. There are times I'm behaving appropriately and I get no recognition. It's not my behavior that causes the positive or negative consequence. It's the adult noticing and choosing to give the consequence that causes that result. This leads to externalization of responsibility and feelings of either victimization or dependency. Why'd you get a good grade? Hey, the teacher was in a good mood. Why'd you get a C on this paper? The teacher hates me, she cheats me, she has pets. Continuing on. If I'm angry or pleased with you instead of with myself, I'm more likely to try to get you to change or maintain your behavior rather than concentrating on what needs to be changed or maintained in me. Since there are so few things in life that are guaranteed and total consistency is next to impossible, the relationship between an individual's actions and the external outcomes is generally weak. And unfortunately, there are many cause-effect truisms we've been told that run counter to reality. For example, if you work hard, you'll get good grades. And then the poor student who works really hard ends up with lousy grades. If you're a good person, you'll have lots of friends. And then there's the student who gets ostracized for being a goody two-shoes. If you break the law, you'll go to jail. The child who sees the same drug dealer on the street for 2 years is going to question this. If you break probation, you'll be sent to juvie hall. And the boy who's broken probation 20 times still hasn't gone yet. Certainly, now my words, certainly it's impossible, but we do try to make our corner of the world a safe and predictable place. Pupils seem to respect teachers who are firm and decisive while being concerned, patient, tolerant, supportive, and predictable. Consistency is necessary if students are going to identify the correct actions in your classroom and foresee the consequences for their actions. Most students will then make rational choices based on the pros and cons of the behavior. Is there more payback from misbehavior than pro-social behavior? Maybe then I'll take a chance because the teacher's inconsistent. If you're a visitor to BehaviorAdvisor.com, you may want to go on to the activities related to this podcast. Those of you in my classes will be engaging in those activities when we meet again.